Oligarchy, from lambda iota gamma omicron sigma, meaning few, and rho chi omega, meaning to rule or to command, is a form of power structure in which power effectively rests with a small number of people. These people might be distinguished by royalty, wealth, family ties, education, corporate, religious or military control. Such states are often controlled by a few prominent families who typically pass their influence from one generation to the next. But inheritance is not a necessarily condition for the application of this term. Throughout history, oligarchies have often been tyrannical, relying on public obedience or oppression to exist. Aristotle pioneered the use of the term as a synonym for rule by the rich, for which another term commonly used today is plutocracy, especially during the 4th century BC, after the restoration of democracy from oligarchical coups. The Athenians used the drawing of lots for selecting government offices in order to counteract what the Athenians saw as a tendency to reward oligarchy in government if a professional governing class were allowed to use the skills for their own benefit. They drew lots from large groups of adult volunteers that pick selection technique for civil servants performing judicial, executive, and administrative functions. They even used lots for posts, such as judges and jurors in the political courts, which had the power to overrule the assembly. Examples: Russian Federation. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union in December 1991, privately owned Russia-based multinational corporations, including producers of petroleum, natural gas, and metal have, in the view of some analysts, led to the rise of Russian oligarchs. United States. Some contemporary authors have characterized current conditions in the United States as oligarchic in nature. Simon Johnson wrote that the re-emergence of an American financial oligarchy is quite recent, a structure which he delineated as being the most advanced in the world. Jeffrey A. Winters wrote that oligarchy and democracy operate within a single system, and American politics is a daily display of their interplay. The top 1% in 2007 had a larger share of total income than at any time since 1928. In 2011, according to PolitiFact and others, the top 400 wealthiest Americans have more wealth than half of all Americans combined. In 1998, Bob Herbert of The New York Times referred to modern American plutocrats as the donor class and defined the class, for the first time, as a tiny group, just 1/4% of the population, and it is not representative of the rest of the nation. But its money buys plenty of access. French economist Thomas Piketty states in his 2013 book, Capital in the 21st Century, that the risk of a drift towards oligarchy is real and gives little reason for optimism about where the United States is headed. A study conducted by political scientists Martin Gilens of Princeton University and Benjamin Page of Northwestern University was released in April 2014, which stated that their analyses suggest that majorities of the American public actually have little influence over the policies our government adopts. The study analyzed nearly 1,800 policies enacted by the U.S. government between 1981 and 2002, and compared them to the expressed preferences of the American public as opposed to wealthy Americans and large special interest groups. It found that wealthy individuals and organizations representing business interests have substantial political influence, while average citizens and mass-based interest groups have little to none. The study did concede that Americans do enjoy many features central to democratic governance, such as regular elections, freedom of speech and association, and a widespread franchise. Gilens and Page do not characterize the U.S. as an oligarchy per se. However, they do apply the concept of civil oligarchy as used by Jeffrey Winters with respect to the U.S. Winters has posited a comparative theory of oligarchy, in which the wealthiest citizens, even in a civil oligarchy, like the United States, dominate policy concerning crucial issues of wealth and income protection. Gillens says that average citizens only get what they want if wealthy Americans and business-oriented interest groups also want it, and that when a policy favored by the majority of the American public is implemented, it is usually because the economic elites did not oppose it. Other studies have questioned the Page and Gillens study. In a 2015 interview, former President Jimmy Carter stated that the United States is now an oligarchy with unlimited political bribery, due to the Citizens United ruling, which effectively removed limits on donations to political candidates. In fiction, a well-known fictional oligarchy is represented by the Inner Party in George Orwell's novel 1984. The socialists in the Jack London novel The Iron Heel fight a rebellion against the oligarchy ruling in the United States. In the Enders Quartet by Orson Scott Card, specifically Speaker for the Dead, Xenocide, and Children of the Mind, there is an oligarchy of the Starways Congress which rules by controlling communication by the Ansible. The nation Panem, controlled by its capital, in the Hunger Games trilogy is also a form of oligarchy, as is the nation of Tyr in Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time.